So how do you feel about Apple suddenly, heading the fight against government surveillance?
So this is a really complicated case because for somebody who's concerned with the protection of rights, you never want to be in a position where you're applauding a corporation because corporations aren't really normally interested in human values. They'll say they are, they'll say this is wonderful, but they do that because it aligns with their business interests. So they're imperfect. But at the same time, having a very powerful corporation does have aligned interests and is willing to take some risk to stand up for the rights not just of their customers but sort of everybody is a very valuable thing. No other country in the world, even like China, Russia, Iran, things like that, have asked for what the FBI is asking for from Apple. And so what are they asking for? The FBI is asking for a company to create a brand new capability that has not existed in this device to allow the FBI to break in more easily. Now, this is a very dangerous thing because it's not about one phone, it's about all phones. And if it works for one company, it works for all companies. But more dangerously than that, even more than losing faith in the security of these devices against the US government, is the fact that if a company decides that it works for one government, it has to work for all governments. Because if Apple says, oh, we'll give the US government a backdoor, China's going to immediately say, well, you have to give us access to the same backdoor or you won't have access to our markets. Very soon we'll have devices that journalists must rely on to be able to talk to their sources and things like that in a normal way, in a private way, in a confidential way, to be able to coordinate with dissidents to get the other side of political stories. A device that has a backdoor in it cannot be secure. A device that's intended for government can also be exploited by hackers, by criminal groups, by adversaries, by spies.
So Apple, for instance, is not being heroic. It's just doing the only thing it can do.
So it is true that if this precedent were established, it would create a world in which American companies can't provide secure devices, but our foreign competitors can. So yeah, they do have personal interests in this business interests that incentivize it. So it's not that they're doing this altruistically or self-sacrificingly. That doesn't mean that it's not something that we shouldn't applaud them for. Sometimes doing the right thing is worthy of our respect, even if it's the only choice they have. Because, not even if it's the only choice they have, but it's still worthy because they do have other choices. They could plea with the government to make this stuff secret, but go forward with it anyway, as has often happened with technology partners in the past, where they'll say, we'll give you what you want, but just please, please, please don't let the public know.
That wouldn't last long.
I think that's less convincing of an option to them than it used to be.
So talking about Europe, last October there was this very unprecedented turn of events where in this case Europe versus Facebook managed to invalidate the safe harbor agreement that the European Union has with the States. What do you think of its successor called the Privacy Shield, signed, I think, at the beginning of this month?
So the Schrems decision is extraordinary for a number of reasons, and I would argue that it's actually most surprising that it took this long to be established. There is no question that, given the basis of the surveillance revelations of 2013, they would have seen that the level of privacy protections for the transfer of foreign citizens' data had no meaningful protections at all against government interference. And therefore, sort of the safe harbor never worked. On the European side, European countries have many, many different kinds of basic consumer privacy laws. In the United States, we have no basic privacy law at all. It's a free-for-all. And instead, we get this rise of contract law, where each service provider lays out the terms of service for people who are using their services, or an end-user licensing agreement if you purchase software. that can be unilaterally and immediately changed by these providers at any time. By using their service, you opt in to sort of be deceived and abused on an ongoing basis. Now,
You mean by taking the I agree thing that nobody reads?
yes, exactly. That little click-through you get when you sign up for the account that nobody reads. Now, we're beginning to see the weaknesses in that structure. It's difficult to envision a solution that'll work in a functional and universal basis without having some sort of just basic consumer privacy law, even simple rules of the road. But until that changes, the Privacy Shield proposal or any other proposal is not liable. The Obama administration has represented itself as saying, we've created policies where we'll be a little more careful when we're rummaging through all the private lives of European citizens. But these are only protections that are implemented on reading the information, right? They collect everything about everybody, American citizens and European citizens, without regard to criminal suspicion. This happens regardless of whether they think you're innocent or whether they think you're Osama bin Laden. So the NSA still has a perfect record of everything that a European citizen is doing without regard to whether they've done anything wrong or not. They can still go through it at will, without a warrant, and examine those records. The only difference is how they handle it after they've examined it. So it is likely that the Privacy Shield proposal will be returning to court. It will be challenged. And if the court rules on the basis of law rather than on the basis of policy, it will have to be revised again. More than anything else, it appears that the Privacy Shield proposal is simply an effort to buy time.
Totally. So just to finish, I wanted to ask you about your life here in Russia, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but how, I mean, I don't know, do you pay rent? Do you have
Of course. Do I pay rent?
Do you have friends? Do you go out for dinner?
Yeah. I mean, I have a pretty normal life relative to my life before, but you've got to understand, you know, perhaps you can tell by looking at me, but I was never really the nightclub type. You know, I wasn't like, yeah, let's go out dancing.
I've heard this awesome clubs.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've said before that you know, people are like, oh, he lives in Russia, but that's only partially true. The reality is that I live on the internet, but I always have. I'm a child of the internet. It helped shape me, it helped to give me my values. It's simply a way of bridging geography. It's a way of crossing space and ending the tyranny of distance. We're creating bonds of fraternity, new communities. We're crossing the span that divides human hearts in new ways, but they're real, and no less real than you and I sitting across the table right now.